Namaste and welcome. I am Pratim Ranjan Bose and you are listening to my podcast Perspective. In this episode, I'll discuss how geopolitics and the looming slowdown in the US can throw major growth hurdles for India in 2024 and 25. India has done remarkably well in handling the pandemic and firing the growth engine over the last 5 years of the Narendra Modi government. India's remarkable post-pandemic growth story, ignoring geopolitical tensions, global inflation, soaring value of the dollar against international currencies, slowdown in global trade and breakdown in trade architecture has become part of the global folklore. Many started regarding India as the new growth engine of the world. The previous engine, China, developed structural cracks. It is reeling under a debt crisis and they are trying to solve the problem by increasing debt. Meanwhile, China's famed manufacturing exports are facing high tariff walls in many importing destinations. Consumer sentiments are down, foreign direct investment or FDI is down. Investors are no longer considering China as a destination for global manufacturing. They are shifting part of the capacities to Vietnam, India and other nations. Apple shifted part of its production capacity to India, which is doing everything to utilize the opportunity. India lost much of the manufacturing momentum to China after liberalization in 1991. India is now promoting manufacturing in sectors like semiconductors, electronics, military hardware, etc., with the dual aim of reducing strategic dependence on imports and exploring opportunities in exports. From nowhere, India became a defense equipment exporter. Mobile phones are now a top export item. The first semiconductor plant will start operation this year. There are weaknesses in the Indian story. Unemployment is a concern. According to the Center for Monitoring Indian Economy or CMIE, the unemployment rate rose to 8.1% in April from 7.4% in March. However, unemployment is a recurring theme for an economy where a woman gives birth to 2 children on average and the population is growing by 0.7% annually. China tackled unemployment after 30 years of double-digit growth and a brake on population growth. The crucial issue, therefore, is growth. India grew by 8.2% in 2023-24. We must sustain the tempo for years. Domestically, the stage is set by high consumer sentiments, low inflation, steady market conditions, etc. The problem lies in geopolitics and the US. From the Russia-Ukraine war in Europe to the Israel-Hamas-Iran conflict in the Middle East or the Philippines-China conflict in the South China Sea, geopolitical tensions are rising and much of it is taking a toll on global trade and economy. The Houthi attack on ships in the Red Sea increased the shipping costs of importing oil from the Middle East to India. India's export cargo to Europe is taking a circuitous route through the Cape of Good Hope or the multimodal movement through the international north-south corridor between Iran and St. Petersburg in Russia. This is only part of the story. Geopolitical tension is adding to the volatility in the crude market. Since India imports the majority of oil and gas, price volatility is negatively impacting the economy. The soaring value of dollar is adding to our hardship. Top French newspaper Le Monde wrote, soaring US dollar is weakening emerging economies. Apart from impact on imports, costly dollar and geopolitical uncertainties are forcing corporates to avoid external borrowing. The dollar has been soaring largely due to wrong US policies. During COVID, the US offered huge cash handouts to its industry to increase employment. Employment did increase and so increased the wages. But since then, the US is reeling under sustained high inflation, which has negatively impacted people. Between 2022 and 23, US household debt grew by $800 million, including a 17% growth in credit card. According to a June 18 blog by the chief economist of S&P Global, recession risk remains above historical norms in the US. That is alarming. Referring to the inverted yield curve which successfully predicted the past 7 US recessions, the blog said, quote, peak growth is likely behind us in this post-pandemic recovery. We anticipate growth will soften to about 1.8% by year-end, unquote. The University of Michigan's Consumer Sentiment Index was at 6-month low in May. Both short-term and long-term inflation expectations remain above the pre-pandemic range. S&P pointed out that both real disposable income and real personal consumption were down in May. In short, the US has no clue how to contain inflation and is surely heading for a slowdown as predicted by Dan North, senior economist at Alliance Trade. All studies indicate a negative outlook for manufacturing, new orders, freight and even housing sector. Home prices are up by 50%. According to USA Today, the famed job growth is coming from only 4 sectors: government, healthcare, leisure and hospitality and construction. There is massive retrenchment in tech sectors. America's problems are deep. A Deloitte forecast says the past 2 American administrations have used tariffs and sanctions to varying degrees as tools to influence adversaries. The use of these tools can have an impact on the prices faced by American firms and consumers. But the problem is, America will export its problems to the rest of the world through the dollar. While de-dollarization is gaining speed, the world will take a long time to establish the alternatives. The Indian rupee is not even a global currency. Our trade is dollar dependent. Our stock market index follows the American index, and the US is our largest trade partner. If the US catches a cold, we have to suffer. And that is the greatest story for the Indian economy in the near term. Thank you for listening to Perspective. If you like this episode, please share and subscribe. See you next week. फिर मिलेंगे.